So now I want to focus your attention on the case study in front of us. So before I actually go into the whole case study, I want to talk a little bit about why they chose Indonesia and why they chose Switzerland, because they seem to be two very random areas. So to preface it a little bit, there is a term in Indonesia called malu, spelled M-A-L-U. So this reflects both the understanding of status inferiority and violating personal norms in a social context. And then when we shift gears and we look at shame in Western societies, it tends to emphasize the personal norm violations and resulting deficiencies in self-esteem. So when we keep these two schools of thought in mind, the researchers hypothesized that TKS might be relevant in Indonesia and compared TKS and social anxiety symptoms, as well as their clinical relevance in Indonesia with the same symptoms and their clinical relevance in Switzerland. A Swiss culture should be representative of a more Western, rather individualistic culture with extremely high rates of Western social phobia. In a culture values survey of Schwartz, the Swiss sample attributed the most importance to intellectual autonomy values such as curiosity, broad-mindedness, and creativity of all the sample studies, and attributed relatively high importance to affective autonomy and to egalitarianism values, but low importance to hierarchy values. So going back to an Indonesian and Swiss culture, Indonesia seems to be a more interdependent, self-construal type of culture, whereas in Switzerland, they seem to be more independent in their self-construal. In regard to with Indonesia, it's more about the status inferiority and violating personal norms in a social context, whereas in the Western societies, such as Switzerland, it's more about norm violations and resulting deficiencies in self-esteem, as stated before. So it really talks about the interdependent versus the independent, which is why they chose those two specific places, because they were extremely different and they would show significance in their differentiation of how they operate as a society. Now I want to move on to the actual case study and the method of what happened. So there was 311 Indonesian and 349 Swiss university students. Of these students, they filled out the Leibowitz Social Anxiety Scale, and this social anxiety scale is a questionnaire developed by Dr. Michael R. Leibowitz, who is a psychiatrist and a researcher. This measure assesses the way that social phobia plays a role in your life across a variety of different situations. They also filled out the Taijin Kaifushi scale. This scale consists of two 12-item subscales assessing interdependent and independent self-construal. Now, the next scale that they filled out was the self-construal scale. This was designed to assess self-image. So it distinguishes between interdependent self-construals, which emphasize the connectedness and relations, and independent self-construals, which emphasizes the separateness and uniqueness of the specific individual. They were also asked to self-report their social phobia in accordance to the DSM-5 criteria. And lastly, they were asked to rate their wish for professional help to deal with social fears.